You steal my spleen. Fine. I steal everything you own. By Geminycain. Chapter 14. Blood/water. He greeted her with a handshake. She returned it with a polite smile before they both took a seat in separate chairs. It is nice to meet you, Tim. You can call me Dinah. Black Canary spoke in a calm voice that somehow blended well with her sharp appearance. Her legs were crossed, and she sat comfortably in front of him while Tim sat with his hands in fists on his legs. My friends have all been patients of yours at one point or another. They speak well of you. Dinah smiled softly. Yes, after the Red Hood incident, I had sessions with the whole team. The soft smile got a teasing edge to it. Or almost the whole team. Tim looks to the side as he remembers the incident. There was a faint memory of such an offer for therapy being made while he was in a hospital bed with a laptop trying to make sense of everything. He had barely registered the offer before he automatically turned it down. He could not waste his time on it. Jason was out there, and Tim had taken his place. He needed to make it right. He needed to help Batman. His hand was broken, but he could still type with the other one. He could not talk after his throat had been slit, but he could still send a message. He could still do something to fix the damage he had done. I'm sorry. Words in a voice that was not his own echoed through his head. I was busy, Tim said, breaking his train of thought. He spoke with a purposefully unconvincing tone, to make himself seem like a boy who had just thought therapy was not worth his time. Dinah luckily seemed to buy it, or at least she did not comment on it. Well, I am glad you are free now. She pulled out a black leather-bound notebook and opened it to a new page. This will be a sort of session 0 to get through all the formalities. There are a few questions I would like you to answer. Tim responded with a nod. Is this your first time talking to a therapist? No, it is not. I have been sent to therapy twice in my life. Do you mind me asking in what circumstances you were sent to therapy? The resting smile on Tim's face turned strained. He took a breath. The first time was after I had witnessed the death of 2 people. I was 4 and I did not really know how to handle it, and my parents did not want to. Tim paused. Retract. That is going to sound bad. His words changed. They wanted to make sure I got better. And how long did you attend these sessions as a child? I only went once. Dinah raised a sharp eyebrow. It's a rather small amount considering why you went. Is there a reason why your parents decided to cancel? A string of panic, which was reaction rather than thought, shot from his chest to his brain. It is my fault, really. I was the one who insisted on not making a second appointment. Why is that? It felt uncomfortable talking to a stranger. Besides, I had been overreacting quite a lot to the whole ordeal. I did not need a therapist. Guilt. What he had felt was guilt. His parents had made the burden he was putting on their shoulders for wasting their time with his nonsense very clear. Tim had felt guilty and insisted he did not need to talk to someone. Every nightmare of the circus he woke up from after that, when ignored by him rather than going to his parents' room. Dinah wrote something down in her notebook, and Tim tried to suppress the string of concern in his chest. And the other time? Tim licked the scars inside his mouth. This was when I was Robin. An incident happened and I went to therapy a couple of times after. So it was Batman who sent you to therapy then? Her tone sounded incredulous, which was fair considering Bruce's remarkable ability to avoid therapy at all costs. Care to elaborate? No. Tim kept a light smile on his face, but his answer was immediate. In a practiced, if not panicked, way. It did not leave room for discussion. Dinah wanted to say something. He could see it on her face, but to her credit, she scribbled something in her notebook instead and let it go. With that settled, what do you expect to get out of this? Get out of this? Yes. What do you hope to achieve with these sessions? Oh, that. Huh. That he did not have an answer to. He knew what he wanted. He wanted to feel better, but he could not just say, make me happier. Therapists do not magically make you feel better. They help you create understanding and help you find your own answers based on that understanding. I am. He spun his wrists in a thinking motion as he searched for the right words. Starting over, in a sense, and I want it to go well. I'm aware of a certain lack of emotional comprehension when it comes to myself, which could be damaging, and I acknowledge I might need help with that. Dinah smiled warmly at him. I think I can help you with that. She scribbled a few more words in her notebook. Your friends also noted very briefly when you made your appointments that there might be things or problems from before this new start of yours that you would like to discuss. Tim made a thoughtful hum. Maybe I will. Likely I only talk about things I feel I can trust you with. He creased her perfect eyebrow for the second time. I do have a strict doctor-patient confidentiality policy, she assured. Yeah, I know, Tim spoke nonchalantly. But I do not trust you not to break it. The pen was laid down in her notebook. The crease in her brow had not gone away. In fact, it seemed to have deepened. If you do not trust me with your issues, I might not be the correct person to be your therapist. I disagree. Dinah's expression turned perplexed. How so? From you, I know where the lines are. I know what I can and cannot tell you, before you, as a member of the Justice League, would feel the need to break doctor-patient confidentiality. If I had a doctor I did not know the morals of, I would constantly worry if I had said too much. Tim shrugged his shoulders. By all means, you are one of the best options for me to get official treatment. There was a calculating glint behind her eyes, seemingly trying to take in Tim as a whole. She wanted to comment on what Tim could possibly say that would have her risking her career to break doctor-patient confidentiality, or what he meant with official treatment. Tim could see the questions on her face, yet instead she played it nonchalantly and said, You overthink things a lot, don't you? So I have been told. For the first time in a long time, Batman looked over his city. Not a stand-in, not a different hero, but Batman. Bruce was relieved to return. So was Dick, who could finally fly over rooftops as Nightwing again. And with Robin and Spoiler right beside them, the streets of Gotham finally had their protectors back. The only one not with them was Red Hood, who kept in charge of Crime Alley. There was not much to deal with that night, a couple of thieves here and there. Bruce had not known what to make of Damian being the new Robin, but it was clear the boy had grown a lot while he had been gone. He was more sociable and more restrained and controlled as he fought. It made Bruce feel a sense of pride, not just for Damian, but Dick as well, who had been helping Damian grow. After the patrol, they all greeted Alfred in the cave and went off to do their separate things. Damian went up to his room. Dick and Stephanie took a quick spar to tire them out before going to bed, and Bruce took a seat at the Bat computer. Would it not be wise for you to get some rest, Master Bruce? Alfred pointed out with a brow sharply lifted. You might be back to crime fighting, but that does not mean you no longer need rest. I will not be long, Alfred, Bruce assured. Whatever you say, sir. Alfred spoke unconvinced before going back up to the manor. Bruce began looking over a few different files. Some of the unsolved crimes that have drastically increased in numbers since he had been gone were glanced over for possible later investigations. But what Bruce focused on was the case he was currently working on, Tim. There was not much to go on anymore. Every lead he thought he had ended up as a dead end, and every person who had a chance of giving them information had not given anything substantial to work with. Honestly, it was a bit silly that Bruce was still looking into this. Sure, there was the secrecy with Tim asking his secretary not to talk about where he had been, but if Tim had been breaking the law by breaking and entering in his attempts to find Bruce, like Bruce suspected, it would make sense if Tim had felt ashamed of it and did not want anyone to know. Bruce should just let it go and let Tim report back to him when he felt ready to do so. But there was still this feeling in Bruce's gut that he could not shake. The feeling that there was something more to it. Footsteps pulled Bruce away from his train of thought as he turned in his chair to see Damien standing behind him. "Damien?" he greeted. "Father," Damien greeted back. "It is rather late, and you have a school day tomorrow," Bruce said as he got up from the chair and stood in front of his son. "I am aware, father, but I believe this is more important than keeping up with my middle school academics." Bruce's brow furrowed. "What is so important?" Damien opened his mouth slightly, only to close it again, and turn his head to the side, as if hesitant to speak, which was very out of character for the boy. "Mother has contacted me," he spoke finally. "She is currently in Gotham and has requested a meeting." "Absolutely not," Bruce turned down immediately. "Father, under no circumstance will I let you near her alone." Bruce turned to the computer, not leaving room for discussion on the matter. Talia, as well as the League of Assassins, had harmed his sons enough, not just Damien, but Jason as well. Damien straightened his shoulders, and despite his father's dismissal, he did turn away. "I understand, father, but the meeting she requested was not with me alone. It was with you as well." Bruce looked over his shoulder back to his son. "She seemed—" Damien stopped as if the words he spoke felt foreign when it came to his mother. "Panicked. Almost desperate. I think whatever she wants to say is important and possibly time-sensitive." Imagining Talia being panicked was not something Bruce found himself capable of. She had likely had a raised tone and let a crack show in her stoned demeanor. But for Talia, that would be a lot. Bruce sighed with the natural roughness of his voice making it sound more like a groan. "Did you say if she came alone?" he questioned. "Yes, she is," Damien answered. One last sigh escaped his throat. "At the first sign of danger, you run. If we do not return within 30 minutes, the rest of the family will be alerted." Damien's eyes seemed to brighten, if only for a second, as he looked up and made eye contact with Bruce, and then bowed. "Yes, father." "How was therapy, Bristol boy?" Bart asked as soon as Tim entered the lab. The team had been working on trying to figure out what the purpose of the stolen chip was, as well as who had hired the robbers. It was not really a session, more of a constructional meeting. From the side where Khan had been assessing the chip under a lens, he churned in his chair. "But how was it? Not scared of her yet, are you?" "It was nerve-wracking," Tim answered honestly. "But it was not like a little nerves has ever stopped me before." "That is glad to hear." Khan smiled at him warmly. Tim suddenly felt the unexplained need to look in any other direction and change the subject. "So, how is it going with the research?" "Could be better," Bart shouted as he skipped from one end of the room to the other. "Cassie and Tamara are currently following up on the thief we managed to put a tracker on to see if they can figure out who hired him. For now, it is with no results." Tim made a thoughtful hum. He took the seat next to Connor and looked at the chip under the lens. In this department, Khan had the upper hand in knowledge, but that did not mean Tim could not assist him in whatever way was needed. Sometimes he would come with suggestions, and they would bounce theory and knowledge off each other in a way that felt as easy as breathing, with Bart assisting whenever they needed. Tim was used to all-nighters and reports, so this was a nice contrast. After a couple of hours, they concluded the chip was for memory storage. In other words, it held information. Getting said information would be tricky, but not impossible. It would just take some time. There was a knock on the door before Tam and Cassie entered. It was very notable that their eyes seemed to linger on Con, although not for long moments at a time. This was going to be bad news. Tim understood. We found out who hired the thieves, Cassie began. The man we have been tracking did not lead me directly to his contractor, but he did lead me to an abandoned hideout with a computer that had been poorly disposed of. With the help of Tamara, we managed to recover messages between the two parties. She explained. Who is it? Tim asked. Despite Tim asking the question, Cassie's eyes dart back to Con. It is Lex Luthor. All eyes seemed to turn to Con now. Con's own eyes widened. Fuck. Both Bruce and Damien were back in their uniforms. Instead of letting Talia choose the location, Bruce insisted on picking the place they would meet for himself to limit the chances of an ambush. Robinson Park was a nice place to meet in the dark, all things considered. It was open, which again made it a bad place for an ambush, and it had many trees and places to stay if you wanted to keep out of sight. It was there they stood waiting not for long before, as elegantly as a thorned rose, Talia showed herself from between the bushes. Talia, Bruce greeted with a gruff voice. Beloved, she responded. Damien took a step forward and bowed. Mother? Talia's sharp features did not change as she made a soft hum. At least your manners have not been forgotten while you were here. Bruce made a grunt. You asked for this meeting for a reason, Talia. What is it? She looked from her son towards Bruce, which allowed the boy to stand straight again. The look she gave him was a calculated one. You do not know? She questioned. I suppose it would make sense that you wouldn't know since you have been recovering from your return. She spoke mostly to herself. Know what? Bruce's tone churned to an interrogating one. The smile on Talia's face turned strained and bittersweet. The League of Assassins is gone. It felt as if someone had just spoken in a different language. The words seemed incomprehensible. What do you mean, gone? Her jaw tightened. Every major base has been reduced to ruin. Every asset has been stolen in only the span of a few days. Damien's eyes widened as he took a furious step forward. That is impossible. What sort of organization would be capable of doing such a thing? Not an organization. Talia spoke with venom. Person. Disbelief painted Damien's features as he put a hand through his hair and took a step back. Bruce took this information in strides. There was someone out there with the entirety of the League of Assassins' assets. Someone who even before that was capable of destroying an enemy Bruce had deemed undefeatable by his own hands. Who? His voice was deep, and it left a tenseness to the quiet around them. Talia lifted her hand, and her eyes darted away from Bruce's. She did not avoid the question, she simply took a moment to contain her anger before her emerald gaze returned to him. I do not know, she answered finally. From what information I have gathered, my father had found a new heir. The fury returned to her voice. One that he kept hidden from me. Damien's eyes widened further. The thought of someone taking his place as heir stung more than he cared to admit. even if it was he who had proven himself unworthy. And whoever this person was had been scouted by grandfather himself. How was Raish reacting to all this? Bruce imagined the prideful man to be more than consumed by wrath towards whoever had done this. The last string of politeness which had been Talia's strained smile faded. My father was murdered. Bruce's brow creased. And he has not returned yet? It is uncertain if he will. The heir who did this drowned him in his own Lazarus waters, and then blew him up along with the roof he was under. Someone had been able to beat Raish in a fight. Bruce himself was not able to do that. This was a big problem. This was a very big problem. An almost sadistic smile appeared on Talia's face. The heir will be found one way or another, either by me or by my father, if or when his generals manage to bring him back. As much as I would like to see this person tortured by my father's hand, I would much rather prefer if father never returned to be the demon's head. It would be better if you caught him and returned the stolen assets to my son, who is the rightful heir by blood. Bruce scowled. Talia held her head high. They both knew Bruce was going to do as she said and research this. It was way too risky to let such a dangerous individual remain unknown. Beloved, Talia. She returned to the shadows, and Batman and Robin turned around. Next to him, Damien walked without saying a word. Bruce pulled out a small screen from his utility belt. There was a small notification of a new hero in San Francisco, which Bruce swiped to the side. Tim's case would have to be put aside. Whatever or whoever this heir was, were now his priority.